Jimmy are. Yeah. So welcome to tonight's call, which is chamomile. I think some of you get the boxes, maybe some of you don't. If you do, thank you very much. And I hope you're drinking your chamomile tea that was in the box. I am here anyhow. It's quite a nice one, so it'll set me up for the evening. And if you didn't get the box, that's fine. You can still drink, excuse me, your chamomile tea. Has anyone really, you can just by show of hands, or you don't have to, worked with chamomile before, used it? I'll be admitting people here as we're going along. Does anyone drink the normal chamomile tea bags that you buy in the, yeah, Petra's stuff? Good. Yeah, so I love chamomile because it's so readily available. It's one of those herbs that you can get anywhere, from Tesco's to the health shop, and it's always around. And I was actually at a conference there on Tuesday in a hotel, and I was looking, and they always have peppermint and chamomile tea bags. It's like a given, so it's a really good one to use because it's so widely available. And I don't know if any of you grow it yourself, but it's worth growing in a pot. It's a really nice one to have. Growing I just love the smell of it. There's nothing quite like the fresh smell of chamomile compared to the dry. So if you grow it, you'll know that. If you don't, I would try grow it just for that itself is healing in itself. So for those, and just Pauline, did you? You got sorted.
Oh, my battery was running out. The mute button was stuck, and camera wasn't. All sorts. Anyway,
You definitely need chamomile then.
100%, 100%.
We all need it. I was myself today. I ran into the shop after work and I ran into a friend and I was like, "Oh yeah, and I'm going home to a chamomile call." And she's like, "Maybe you should drink some before you go on the call." I was like, "Yes, actually," because you kind of forget and you get caught up. So yeah, definitely.
It's been one of those days.
Yeah, one of those weeks, I think. But anyway, yeah. So look, if you've gotten the box, it's not that you have to have, but in the box you would have gotten your dried herb, you would have got your tea, you would have got your tinctures and stuff, so you can taste it and play around with it. And the tincture tastes a little bit different than the teas, obviously. And so I'm just sorry now. I'm omitting people here as we go along. Yeah, so what was I saying? Yeah, the dried teas and the tinctures obviously taste a little bit different. I don't know if anyone who got the box thinks that. I think they taste slightly different. The tea can be very bitter when we leave it. So I like bitter stuff. So when I'm drinking chamomile tea, even just a normal tea bag, and when I say normal tea bag, I mean shop bought tea bags. I would leave it sit in it till it's gone, till I drink the whole water out of it. Where some people find that too bitter. The longer the tea bag sits in the hot water or in the warm water, the more bitter components and chemicals it releases. So it becomes a lot more bitter. So some people only like to leave chamomile in the cup for a couple of minutes, where I like to leave it till I'm finished. But that's preference. And I think in the tea blend in the box, it blends nice because we had the lemongrass in there and the peppermint, so it kind of eases it all out. So yeah, so what is chamomile? What can we use it for? We can use it. I suppose I hate to pigeonhole herbs, but sometimes when we're doing stuff like this, it's easier to kind of pigeonhole it. And this would be one that I would pigeonhole into sort of anxiety, relaxation, and digestive. If I had to pick two. They would be the two I would pick, it like calm and anxiety and any sort of digestive issues, which tends to go with high anxiety. Do you know, if we have that upset stomach, nervous tummy, that's obviously all related to anxiety and stress and stuff like that. So people tend to think that if they drink chamomile, like they're going to be knocked out, fast asleep. Wouldn't that be great? We don't be going around with our chamomile hanging out of us. What it's doing is it wouldn't be one of the stronger sedatives that we would have available to us. Like I would be looking, if I was looking for like strong sedatives, I would be looking more California poppy, valerian, that kind of end, where chamomile is just that all around middle of the road sedative, where I like to think of it as more of like a hug, that sort of feeling of just like, you just get a moment to drop the shoulders. Even when you smell it, when it's fresh, what it's doing is I automatically, every time I smell it, it's just like, shoulders just drop. It's not that I'm falling asleep there and then, you know, and if we take it throughout the day, so we can drink it throughout the day. If you do suffer from sleep issues, we can drink it throughout the day, getting our body ready for later. But it's just to be aware that it's not going to knock you out. You know, if you're having sleep issues, like I said, we're going to need stronger ones, like the California poppy or valerian. Now, and different herbs for different sleep issues. A lot of people will come to me and say, "Oh, I can't sleep," and I'm like, "That's great. Let's talk about how you can't sleep. Is it you can't get a sleep, or you're waking up when you sleep, or when you wake up you can't get back sleep?" So there's all different herbs to go with it. Where chamomile falls into that is if someone is really sort of grouchy, can't get a sleep, and like that irritated, like they're irritated, they're grouchy, they're like literally like adult babies. You know, those people that, you know, in your life that are just like, sometimes you're just like, they're acting like a little kid. They're that sort of contrary thing that we can get that when we lack sleep. So that's where chamomile really comes into its own. Really, really helpful for that sort of sleep issues, but in general, just great for anxiety and stress. The tire, I'm just looking at my notes here, making sure I get everything in. So yeah, I was just mentioning, yeah, in the book that you will have seen if anyone got it, the properties of, I have to find it now, so I'll read them out just in case anyone hadn't got it. They're anti-inflammatory, anti-spasmodic, nervine, a sedative, anti-ulcer, immune stimulant, an antihistamine, a decongestant, a digestive, a bitter tonic, antiseptic, antimicrobial, and a vulnerary. So that just means wound healing. So you can see how amazing it is. It's all the antis together, you know, the anti-inflammatory, anti-spasmodic. And when we say that, we mean like anti-spasmodic is what we get when we get that nervous stomach, that sort of tight tension. Is great for anyone who suffers from Crohn's or IBS. Along those lines, I'd be going in with peppermint. And then if they suffer from anxiety due to the Crohn's or the any stomach issues, we can go in with chamomile. But chamomile is also great for kids, and we can make it in a glycerite. Then if we're doing our tincture in our jar, we can do 60% glycerite and 40% water, and that, and again leave it for about 6 weeks to sit, the dried herb. And so then it's alcohol free, because our tinctures are obviously made on alcohol. And it's a great one to use then for kids, and it has that nice sugary syrupy taste, so they'll take it really well. So again, really good for that sort of contrary time that they can get, and especially that time just before bed, you know, when they get that sort of, you know, yeah, so really good for adults and kids alike. And we all get like that. Then the entire plant is medicinal, and not just the flowers, but the flowers are where it's most potent. But when I'm harvesting, and I tend to harvest the flower and the feathery leaf and the whole lot. But you could actually use the root as well, but we leave the root because obviously we want it to come back year on year. Grows great in a pot. So I know if you got the box, you got some seeds, you can certainly grow them in a pot. And yeah, I think it's around this time of year you can grow them. I'm not great on the growing of things. I tend to be sort of throw it in a pot and see what happens. And I have a friend who's a horticulturist, and then I ring him for the SOS. What did I do wrong? So that's not my forte. My forte is when they're all beautifully grown, and then I can come and take them. But yeah, I like to just throw it in a pot. So it does well in a pot, and like I said, it's fully medicinal. There's 2 types of chamomile. There's German and Roman chamomile, and you'll find that more in essential oils, is where that kind of differentiates. And we'll have a chat about that in a while, the difference between the two. And the one that you got in the box is the Roman chamomile. There's just slightly different constituents to them. So the Roman chamomile is more anti-inflammatory, and the German chamomile is, I think I've gotten that right now, is more sedative. So it's just either or. And when I say more, it's literally, they're interchangeable. It's fine. Don't get too worried about it. I'm not sure what even one they put in the general tea bags in the likes of Tesco and stuff. It's probably the Roman one. I'm not sure actually. I must check that out. Anyway, just out of curiosity. So the name chamomile, I love the name of it, the translation of it. It comes from 2 words. It's a chamai, meaning on the ground, and melon meaning apple. So that's the translates to earth apples, which I just think is lovely. How nice is that? The Romans had some really nice names, or the Greeks, I mean, the Romans, they kill me. The Greeks had really nice names for stuff. So little ground apples. So, and oh, I recently read in a book, in a historical book about herbs that I was reading, that's really quite interesting, that the monks used to grow it in their gardens. They were the first in Ireland to start using, well, not the first in Ireland to start using it, but they were the first to kind of have apothecaries, and they would have grown their medicinal beds outside, and they grew one bed just full of chamomile, about the length of a man, and the width of a man was what the historical books and papers were saying. And it simply was so people would come to them like a chemist, like an everyday chemist now, and go in and say, oh, this is wrong with me. And half the time they were just saying, oh, it's just melancholy, or, you know, at that time of year. And their prescription was to send the person out to lie on that chamomile bed until they fell asleep. And then they'd go out, the monks would go out 2 or 3 hours later and wake them. And that would have been their medicine. And I was just like, oh my God, we need to bring back chamomile beds to everywhere. Can you imagine how nice would that be if you were somewhere and they were just like, listen, just go lie out in the chamomile bed, just snooze, I'll come wake you, don't you worry. I was just like, ah. So I'm thinking I may have to grow a chamomile bed and do that for some of my clients. But I just thought how wonderful. And like, it is for me, like I was saying before, I'm very tactile, I'm very sensory. So for me, the smell of chamomile alone, just squeezing it and smelling it, I have that automatic reaction of like, oh. So I can only imagine just lying in a big bed of it, like, you know. So well done, the monks. We need to bring that back. What else do I have here? Yeah, it was considered one of the sacred herbs for the Norse god, the god of war. I think it was Woden, I think is his name. But I just thought that was interesting that because it's known as a masculine herb, and it is the planet, it's the sun, which makes sense because of the flower and it looks like that. And the element is water. But I just thought it was interesting that the Norse god had taken it, god of war. So maybe he wanted to heal. And it's also known as a healer plant as well. Chamomile, my friend who's the horticulturist, he tells me he plants it with other plants that aren't doing so well. So it can help heal that plant. And then he'll remove it once the plant is doing back to, you know, he grows a lot of his own fruit and veg, and he does a lot of stuff. And he has a couple of big polytunnels. And if he knows a plant should be making it, but just for some reason isn't, he'll plant a chamomile in there and see. And he said like 8 out of 10 times the chamomile will bring back the other plant to help it, and then he'll either remove it or leave it there if possible. So it's a really helpful plant to have on our side. Nutritional, it has high amounts of magnesium and phosphorus and sodium. I had to write that one down, I would have forgot that one. So like I tend to go, if we're looking for nutritional stuff, I tend to lean towards sort of like nettles and my mind's gone blank, of course. I'm trying to think of the more, wild oats, you know, that sort of kind of stuff. Chamomile I wouldn't class as having a lot of nutritional value, but it does have value, obviously. And like I said before, all its properties, it's the aromatic is where it really comes into its own, which is that like that smell. You can't help but like have that hit of it when you smell it. It's a great wound healer, so great for the skin. So in the box you would have got did I say it was an oil, wasn't it? If anyone, I sent you out an oil, didn't I? A balm and an oil. Oh, looky, I got, oh yeah, Pauline has it there. Yeah, I threw in an extra bonus of an oil. I thought I was making the balms and I thought it should have been just the balm in the box. And I was like, you know what? I just can't. I have to give you the oil as well, because it's just nice to be able to use both and smell both. Have you used them yet, Pauline?
Yes, gorgeous.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's just even that smell is relaxing, like, you know, and so putting a bit on your chest at nighttime before you go to bed, you know what I mean? On your third eye, you know, stuff like that, and incorporating it in. It doesn't always have to be about, you know, oh, I have a big wound and I have to put it on. It can be stuff that we just want to incorporate into our everyday, you know, you get out of the shower and you just kind of put a little bit on it and you get into bed and you're all cozy and stuff, or put a bit on your feet or something, you know, the nice stuff. So yeah, so there was oil. I just thought when I was making the oil, it smelled so good. I was like, oh, and the balm smells good, but the oil smells great. So I was like, I have to throw that in the box. And they have the same sort of uses, you know, like I said, if you want them for the anti-inflammatory, excuse me, wound healing, upset stomach, you could rub it on your stomach and then put like, a warm pack on your stomach. And you can do that either or with the balms. Great for cramps, menstrual cramps. The oil or the balm or the tea, these are all useful for that. So yeah, you can use either or, but it's just that they are wound healer, and we've probably all heard of chamomile lotion anyhow that we would have had when we were kids, possibly. All the white dots around us, and when we got chicken pox, you could tell which town had the outbreak, because there was just kids walking around with all the little white dots on them, and that was chamomile lotion. A little bit different, but if I had chicken pox now or treating chicken pox, I would be going in with lemon balm and then your chamomile. So let me take a drink of my tea. Any questions so far?
Just with that oil, is that just the infused oil?
That's just the infused oil.
Yeah.
Sorry,
gorgeous. Yeah, I shall be doing that.
Yeah, I have a question as well. I was sold chamomile in a shop, and I planted it all over my garden, and it's spreading like crazy.
Yeah.
But I picked it dry, and it's very bitter and it's very sharp. So I'm not sure if it is chamomile.
Oh, I'd say it is. It can be soil dependent as well.
Okay.
Yeah. So what I might grow mightn't be as bitter, but it is a bitter herb. So then it will depend on the soil about how bitter. So what I would do with that is I would tincture it rather than drink it. If it's too bitter to drink, and enjoyable, it should be a little bit bitter, but not really bitter. Or like mix it in with other herbs, so you're only using a little bit.
Oh yes, of course.
Yeah, because we need that bitter component, for our digestive system. It's so important. So it's going to help break down everything. But yeah, or you could infuse some oil with it once it's dried out. That component can kind of be lost in the oil. So you definitely have hit the jackpot, but maybe not the jackpot you wanted with the bitterness. But
no, it was just so different from yeah, it was so different from the bags that you buy in the shop, and that's why I bought it, because I drink it so much. So that's fair enough. Good to know. Thank you.
Yeah, and I mean, it even looks different for those of you that maybe don't have the box. You can see the size of it there. And let me see if I can pull some out. You can see a bit better probably on that, or even in my hand. That's the size of it in that it should be when we're harvesting it fresh, but in the shop it's obviously chopped up into tea bag size. So what it tends to be is the different levels of it. Doesn't mean that you can't drink it or don't take it, and I'm all about use what you can afford. So if you can afford the organic, great. If you can't, don't be worrying about it. Go to Tesco and get your chamomile. Once you can get it into you, it's fine. But all it is the top layer of herbs like this one, because these come from an organic supplier, are what they would say the top level. They dry them on a rack, they shake the racks, the bits that fall down the next level would be used next level, and then when it gets to the bottom, it's literally just the kind of leftover bits and dust and stuff that's falls through the rack, and that's what ends up in the tea bags that we find in Tesco's and stuff, with other stuff that's kind of not other bits of chamomile that would be able to be cut up. Doesn't mean that it's bad, it just means that, you know what I mean, you might, if we're looking to use it medicinally, we might need 3 tea bags compared to what we would use with the dried for 1. So that's all. I 100% have used the normal tea bags myself. Normal, as if mine are abnormal. The normal tea bags, we'll just call them normal. Great for any eye infection. I have my cat Rodney now might pop up here. He's just after waking up, so he might be a bit of a devil here. You might get a flash of him soon. But yeah, what was I saying? Oh, great for eye infection, a sty in your eye, any eye issues, tired eyes even. Sometimes like this, I wear glasses, we're looking at a computer, we're kind of, I feel even after a day maybe teaching or something, I'm just like, oh, and that's where those tea bags are super handy. Or if you have the dried herbs, just a cloth, put your tea into it. Or sometimes I'll make a tea, and that's what you could even do, Petra, with all your bitter stuff, is make the tea and then just dip the cloth in and put that up onto your eye. Really good, going to be really helpful because it's anti-inflammatory, it's antiseptic, so it's really going to help bring down any inflammation in the eyes, and it smells all right, which is a good thing, because sometimes some of these herbs, when you're getting people to use them, they don't smell so great, so there can be that resistance. But with that, it's really good. Yeah, chamomile for sleep then, like I was saying before. I have a blend that I tend to use. I grind my teeth when I get stressed and worried, and I don't even know sometimes I'm doing it. I'll just wake up in the morning and be like, oh, and it's just like, oh, that, like, I obviously have something on my mind that I'm processing at nighttime, and my go-to for that would be chamomile, passion flower, and skullcap, the three of them together in a tincture. So if I know I have something coming on or I'm just under stress, I will take the tincture of that before I go to sleep or when I wake up, just to release that tension in the jaw. But even just having a cup of chamomile can be really helpful with that. So yeah, and what was going to, oh, a tea blend with a sleep tea blend that I've made before is oats, skullcap, St. John's wort, lemon balm, and a little bit of lavender. And it was a lovely sleep blend. So you can play around with tea blends, whatever you have in your garden, or maybe if you've gotten the boxes previously or whatever, you can mix and play around with them. It also combines, I don't know if anyone grows any catnip. It's not just for cats. Even though you have to keep it away from the cats. But catnip is a great one. Amazing herb for kids. Lemon balm, catnip, chamomile are three herbs that if I had young kids in the house, I would have. And even if you just have chamomile and lemon balm, you're good to go. But catnip is a really good one. Great digestive, upset stomach. Do you know that nervous stomach that kids get especially, or they get like their food, they go off their food. And it's just all around to do with their anxiety, and they mightn't even be realizing they're suffering from anxiety. But catnip is really good for that. So chamomile and catnip, they combine really well together. They work hand in hand. Chamomile is really relaxing, and the catnip is helping just with the digestive and the nervous system.
Is it the catnip flower and the leaf, or what from the catnip?
Flower and the leaf, if you can beat your cats to them, if you have cats. I have to grow mine way up high, and then they get them as a little treat. And it's funny, when I have two cats, Bowie will just flake out and Rodney will just get wired. So they have different reactions to it. So yeah, so it combines well with that, and like I said, it's good for jaw tension. Rodney's just looking at me there now. He probably heard catnip and he's just like, woo. The oil and the balm, like I said, you can use them for any skin issues. Where I've given it before as well, which has been really nice, is for pregnant women or breastfeeding mothers, and for cracked or sore nipples, especially because it's natural, it can be used, they can still breastfeed. The chamomile, actually a little bit of the oil, it can be nice, or the balm, because, and even if they drink the tea, because that can be helpful with colic, for the baby if they're breastfeeding. So it can be really good for that. And cracked lips, anything that you think of that is just sort of that pain. Like, I mean, obviously we have calendula and we have other herbs we can use as well, but this call is about chamomile, so we can use that as well. Great for seasickness, I just have down here. Teething, kids teething, and that's where the glycerite comes in handy if you have that, if you have young kids who are teething, because you can rub it on their gums if you didn't want to give them the few drops of the tincture. You could use that, or you could a tea, not so strong, because obviously we don't want it too bitter, in their bottle. I did know of one of the women that had a baby recently, and I was telling her about chamomile, and what she did is she made ice cubes out of it, made a tea, made ice cubes, froze them, and put them in the bottle and gave that to the baby, because she actually couldn't breastfeed, and so she was doing it through the bottle, and she found it great. It relaxed them, it stopped the colic, and she was able to kind of control the amount that went into the bottle. And she actually ended up using it, I think, with her other child who was 4 or 5. She gave it to them in a sippy cup as well, the ice and stuff. So she actually incorporated just for them to calm down kind of in the evening. So loads of ways to use it. And what else have I got here? I have notes because I forget. I know that the essential oil as well. I wanted to talk a little bit about that, but digestive, what was I talking about there? Oh, helps to reduce, it's antispasmodic, as I said before, so it helps to reduce the spasms, which we can find in PMS as well, so really handy for that. Especially if you like the taste of chamomile, you're onto a winner, and you suffer from PMS or cramps or anything. Sometimes the problem with people taking herbs and teas and stuff is that they don't actually like the taste of it. So obviously it's not going to be very helpful to you, as in you have to force it into you. It's not enjoyable. So if you do like the taste of chamomile, it is a really good one to have around the house for a kind of all-rounder. And it can be really good, like I said, with any digestive issues or cramps. German chamomile reduces the inflammation in the digestive tract, and it works best on an empty stomach. Don't worry too much about this now. This is just more going into bigger notes, but I just had them in the other course notes I had, so I threw them in there. And yeah, either tea, as in German or Roman chamomile, to treat colic, heartburn, indigestion, peptic ulcers, flatulence, and diarrhea. And you can also use it to alleviate the inflammation of chemotherapy or radiation. And so that can, where you might use the balm or the oil for that. And that it was the German one. But that's the one I kind of tend to use anyhow, I think mostly for the Roman one. The Roman one. I'm getting myself confused now. Like I said, I don't want you to be worrying too much about it. Like chamomile will be helpful either way or which. I'm gonna pour. I'm actually really I like all the teas I make, obviously. I'm not biased, but I really like that good one that I sent out. It just really hits the spot. Hot and cold infusion eases gastroenteritis inflammation, so good for any stomach issues. Yeah, you can take it hot or cold. It's totally preference. Oh yeah, and chamomile can regulate the peristalsis. So I don't know if you know what peristalsis is. It's the movement of your inner intestines. Obviously they're all wrapped around, you know, if we were to pull them out, they'd be the length of the house or whatever. But to move all your food down into your bowels so we can excrete it, your muscles have to use what they call peristalsis, and it's just a slight movement like that. And so when we're getting cramps, we're getting it really tight. But what's happening is we have to keep just gently, so it basically just pinching it all the way along so it moves. Otherwise it would just sit still. And that's what happens when we have like constipation. The peristalsis is just, no, what happened? One of the things, the peristalsis is just stopped. So it's just nothing's moving along. So chamomile can help go in, moisturize that, get that movement going again. So it can be really helpful for constipation, just to move that digestive system along, which is why it's really good for like your digestive system. Any questions? No. And we keep going. So what time are we at? past. What have I got here now? Oh yeah, you can actually add it into a bath as well for kids. You know, if you wanted to calm them down, if you were using it for like the nervous system, a nice way to do it is in a bath. You can make either a tea and just throw that cup into their bath, or you could throw a few of the tea bags in and stew them with the kids. But it's just nice that way. I wouldn't do the loose ones, literally simply because you have to clean up after it. That's the only reason. And that's never fun, trying to clean up little bits of flowers and stuff out of a bath after you've just had a relaxing bath. So always add them into a cloth or something, and that way you can use it to dabble on. Can be helpful for, like, you know, any sort of skin issues as well. So if you suffer dry skin, psoriasis, all that kind of thing, acne, it's really good for. So if you're in the shower, you could make, like, you know, a cloth with a bit of the loose tea in it and use it as like a rub, or like, what's the word I'm looking for? Like a sponge nearly, to kind of clean, use in the shower or that. So find different ways to use it. Gargling with chamomile tea can help reduce inflammation, again, because it's anti-inflammatory. So we can use it to help. I also, if you have any teeth issues, my go-to is yarrow, because it tightens up the gum. But if you have an infection in there, then I would do like yarrow and chamomile are going to be like a winning team in there, because they're both antiseptic, antimicrobial, antibiotic, or anti-inflammatory, and the yarrow is going to tighten up while the chamomile goes in and kind of helps with the nerve pain. And that. And I talked about an eye wash. Used as a hair rinse as well for blonde hair. Obviously I have dark hair, I use nettles. I use a spray with nettles, horsetail and rosemary in my hair, and a rinse and in apple cider vinegar. I leave it to sit for about 6 weeks with the 3 herbs in it: nettles, horsetail, and rosemary, and I fill it with apple cider vinegar, excuse me, and I leave it to sit for about 4 to 6 weeks, and then I will drain out and I'll spray that in my hair after I wash it before it dries in. And you will smell like vinegar for a little while, but the vinegar dries in and you don't smell like that anymore. I can promise you. The vinegar goes away once your hair is dry. And so I don't use a conditioner at all. That's what I use as my conditioner. But if I had blonde hair, I would be adding chamomile into that, but because I have dark hair, I use the nettles. Like I said before, I use it on my own eye. I have something called scleritis in my right eye, and it's a tiny little inflammation. If your eye was like a clock, it's like from 12 to 1. I have this little slot of like little pie piece, I suppose, that if I get really high anxiety or stress, if I'm just stressed really and I don't even know, my eye will start like, you know, getting inflamed, and I'll have to, you know, look after it, obviously. And thankfully there's 2 types of scleritis. There's one that eats your eye, eats the white of your eye, which I'm like very grateful I don't have. And then the one I have is just an inflammation of the white on your eye. But I find the first thing I'll do is go for my chamomile tea bags and put that on it. And I find it really super helpful to use, and I'll up my chamomile intake when that starts at me. And I've talked to the eye specialist down here. We're blessed to have one here in town, and he can see that it will never improve, but it's been longer. I'm getting longer and longer out of having to kind of report back to seeing him about it, because it's something that's only recent as well, like, well, 2-3 years. So yeah, so we'll keep working on it. Let me see what else I have here. Any questions while I'm scoping my notes here? What time are we at? Yeah. I know sorry, Karen, did you have a question?
What did you say was in the dark hair? And nettle,
rosemary, and horsetail.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and even if you can't get your hands on horsetail now, because that's probably dying off or kind of gone at this stage, or fresh rosemary, I mean, you'll always get nettles all year round. So even a bit of rosemary from the shop, you know, the plants you buy down in Tesco's or whatever, like, use that, it's fine. Or, you know, if you add a pinch, use the really dried rosemary that you get for your chickens and stuff like that, and your roast veg. And so if you can't get horsetail, even just use the 2, but the horsetail is great. Horsetail is great for being connective. It works on connective tissues, and it's full of nettles, and horsetail are full of what we call silica. So you may have seen that health shop Perfect Nail, I think it's called, or something. It's like, it's all silica based, and horsetail and nettle do the same job for free, basically. And, you know, are really strengthening for your hair and can help with hair growth and stuff like that. So yeah, really good. Chamomile combines well with ginger as well, especially if we're using it for digestive issues, or for kind of, if we're cold, now that the cold evenings are coming in circulation, it could be really good for that. A sleep blend, I said before, and we were talking about that. Yeah, after meal bitters, so it can be good if you, like I said, with Petra's, it's bitter, so maybe she'll have that after dinner. It can help break down that food, helps that peristalsis that we talked about move along, stops stomach cramps. So a really good one to add in. So the essential oils, I don't know if anyone has used the chamomile essential oil. They're quite expensive, and they should be. So if you're buying anything kind of around, normally most essential oils, a 10 ml are anywhere from, like, I suppose average would be like 4 or 5 to kind of 9 would be average. Chamomile is about 25 for a 10 ml. So it's quite a jump, like, you know. And the German chamomile is blue, really dark blue, inky kind of color, and it's sweet. It smells like nearly, yeah, not as much bitter as sweet. And then the Roman chamomile is like a pale yellowish, and that's more picks up more of a herby smell, for want of a better word. But it's just to know the difference. And again, we're looking at kind of nuances there, like the German chamomile, what you have down here is like, I tend to just have the German chamomile, and not because I prefer it over the other. It's just, I'm not buying 2 of them. I only want 1. So, and I think I like the idea for some reason of the bluey essential oil. It makes it feel more magical or something, or I feel like I'm mixing more potions. But I would be using it a lot in, I suppose, balms and stuff for muscle pains and aches. So the German one does do a little bit better there, where the Roman one, we'd be using it more as a sedative. Sorry, my cat's now in my basket. Great. He'd probably sleep there for the night. Yeah, so it's more, the Roman chamomile essential oil is more sedative. So, but don't be going wasting your money, like, on essential oils unless you're into aromatherapy, and make sure you always buy from reputable sources. And so that's what you're looking for. You're looking for around 20 to 25 euros. If it's anything less, it's chemicals or it's no good, just leave it behind. What else was I going to say? Oh yeah, the sometimes when I do not sometimes, but in the boxes you'll get essences as well. But I just thought the essential oils carry their own essences as well. So if you wanted to, sorry, what have I got down here? Yeah, German chamomile can be used to counteract agitated or overactivity in any chakra, where the Roman chamomile is more for your throat chakra. So they just line up with different things. I mean, it's not the be all and end all of stuff, but it's just nice to know these things at times, and that this is what they can do. We can do loads with herbs. I mean, we can have them in tinctures, syrups, glycerites, teas, honeys, topically, like, topically in a balm and oil. And the last class there we made body butters, we made face creams, so there's loads of ways you can start using herbs, and loads of fun ways you can incorporate them. So you don't need to wait until you're sick, because then we're looking at using herbs like we are currently using medication, and that's not the idea. The idea is to have them there for that reason, but to be able to use them, incorporating them in our lives daily, so that it's preventing all that. And by drinking the tea that we had, like that gut healing tea that I sent out, like I said, we have chamomile, we have lemongrass, peppermint, orange peel, and lemon balm. So just even having a cup of that today, like, it's going to be anti-inflammatory, it's going to help your digestive system. The lemongrass gives you a bit of an energy boost, a bit of a zing. Like the lemon balm, again, good for your nervous system. The orange peel is a great little bitter that's great for your digestive. So by having that daily, or a tea, or even a tincture of stuff, like, I'm working on so many systems without even realizing it, that the hope is that I never get to the stage where I need to kind of sit down and formulate. But if I need to, I can, so we need it working both ways. What time are we at? 37. So I think we'll kind of wrap up. If you have any questions, I don't want to keep you too much longer. I know I throw a lot at you on these calls, but they're available to watch again. And I don't want to be boring you either. And with all the stuff. Did you get something, Pauline?
Well, I was at last weekend, I was making just some nice, I can't even remember, this is my perimenopause, can't even remember the ingredients, but I was making a balm it was just a body balm for myself. And I was mixing it with a bit of shea butter, and I had whatever I was reading somewhere that you could add water. Now I destroyed the whole lot.
Yeah.
Is there a way you can incorporate water in it to lighten the texture so that the skin absorbs it a bit better than just the wax, or don't use water? I know there's less of like, it won't last as long if you put the water in. But actually, after I put it in the fridge and then I took it out and let it sit then to room temperature, the water just rose. So I was able to pour the water back off.
Save it. Well done. Yeah, so I tend to, the only way I use water is I would make a herbal tea and use that as my water component. And then I'm always adding a little bit of emulsifying wax, simply for handiness sake more than anything. But you could add a little bit of beeswax.
Well, I had beeswax, I had butter, shea butter, and then water, and it was the smallest amounts of water, but it's still just, did I not mix it right, or?
You see, I don't, yeah, no, I'd say you did. It would maybe just needed a little bit more beeswax. Yeah.
Right.
It's kind of hard to play around with. I don't tend to I don't sell creams, as in, on my shop I sell tinctures and balms, and that's the reason I don't sell creams. They're so unstable. To keep them stable, we need to put chemicals in them, which is fair enough. And that's even what the emulsifying wax is, a little bit of a chemical, and I get that. So to be able to
put some vitamin E in it.
Yeah, some vitamin E and stuff like that, and it can prolong it. But then you need to be able to keep it, like, if you keep it in the fridge, it keeps it a little bit longer. We just need to be careful with creams per se, simply because they can pick up bacteria and we don't want to go near our eye and stuff like that. They just change so quickly. They're like, I don't know, they're worse than the weather here in Ireland. I'm like, because I made creams at my workshop there a couple of weeks ago, and like I had one in a small tin and I had one in probably a jar like this, because as we were making them I had leftovers, and I left the jar in one room and the cream in actually here in this one. And there's someone joining now as we are leaving. And I left the jar in the jar in one room and the little cream here in this room. And they were both doing fine. And then all of a sudden I went to use the one in the other room and mold had grown on top of it. And I was like, oh shit. And it wasn't even that long. I came out to the one here, which is the same temperature, and it was fine. I was just like going, so I can't, creams and me don't mix well. I teach people how to make them, but then I hold no responsibility over them. That's why I like balms and oils. They're more stable for me.
Yeah.
I can use them more. But I would have played around with adding a little bit more beeswax in.
It was just purely for the absorption, so that the skin would absorb it a bit more, like a lotion or a...
Yeah. And I'll write it down now. I do have a recipe for a body lotion that I can email to you, body lotion.
I'm just trying to cut out all store-bought stuff if I can make them myself now.
Yeah, and it's nice, it's nice to be able to do it.
No chemicals.
No chemicals. And there is times where we need to have a few chemicals. We can't avoid them completely. So, and again, it's what we can manage to do and afford to do and stuff like that. So it's each, we can't get too tied up in it, either. But a good start anyhow. And essential oils, you can add in a few little drops of that, like a lavender or something, to keep them stable as well.
Yeah.
Small amounts with that. But yeah. Anyone else got any more questions? There's Sarah's putting in something in the notes. Did you? Let me close that down now. Sarah Welch. Oh, she's gone, is she? Oh, great. Glad it's the same good consistency. My cream. Oh, okay. You see, there's so many ways to do stuff, and that's what I love about doing this job. I love teaching classes, because while I'm teaching, I'm learning, because someone will always be like, oh, I use this, and I'm like, oh my gosh, yeah, that's great. Let's try it. So I'm not the be all and end all, even though I tell my husband I am all the time. I'm not. So, you know what I mean? Take what you want from me and go and find new information. It's about blending and about using, and combining what we all learn. And, like you said, Paul, like someone now has heard you, Pauline, talk about using that, and they're like, okay. So it's like, that's what it's about. It's about having fun with it and finding a way to incorporate it into your life that isn't stressful and isn't, oh my God, I have another thing to do. We don't want that. So mix and match, do whichever, take a little bit from me, take another bit from someone else, and, mix it all together and come up with your own way of doing it. And as always, I'm here anyhow if anyone has any questions.
Is there any tips to cleaning up after making
No. Walking out of the kitchen and hoping your husband doesn't work.
No,
No, kitchen roll, and I hate using kitchen roll, because obviously environmentally it's like not great and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I have to say kitchen roll is a must when you're making with oils and balms and stuff.
Yeah.
It just gets rid of that grease. And then unfortunately, this is where we have to use a sort of a chemical, which is fairy washing up liquid.
Yeah.
It's the only thing that cuts through that.
Yeah.
I used to work in because I do payroll on and off, and I used to work in a manufacturing company that made car parts here in my hometown in Carlow. They make for high-end cars, quite a big company. They make for Porsche and a Jaguar and all the big Ferraris. They make the bonnets and the chassis. And anyway, I was doing accounts, and they were ordering in. I got an invoice across the desk, and it was like for 300 boxes of lemon fairy liquid. And I was like, we had a canteen, and I was just like, this is crazy. And I went into the name who had ordered it, and I was just like, we can't be, is this for the whole year? Like, is this for 2 years? They're like, and he was like laughing. He was like, no, we use it out in the factory floor. It's the only thing that gets the grease off the metal. So they dip it in, they make a big dip, and they dip the bonnet and the chassis in, and it strips the metal of any sort of grease or anything. And I was just like, oh my God. And people are like eating, we're piling on it, which is fine. But it's just, you know what I mean? So I have tried all the natural detergents with pots and stuff over the years, but I end up just having a bottle of Fairy, to be honest, for that reason, because it's just, yeah.
Yeah, I should look for the lemon version the next time.
Yeah, we'll just cut right through it. But
Through
it's quite interesting. But yeah. So yeah, next month's box is plantain. If anyone signed up for it, it's here behind me. I was packing some of it today, so we're ready to go with it. So we have the usual, we have our tea, we have our balm, I have a balm and a bonus oil again this time. And I'm letting everything fall. Your balm, we have your tincture and your essence. We have a lovely tea called Rewilding Yourself. And then, yeah, our jar. So that's all getting ready to go out. And hopefully next week. I would like to get it out before the end of next week. And yeah, so that's that. And if anyone's interested, I have about, I think, 4 places left on my course in February. But you can check that out on the website anyhow if you want to. Let's see, someone asked here now. Tincture, what alcohol do you typically use? Who asked me that? Sarah, I use vodka only because it's colorless and odorless to a certain extent. Obviously, it has a nice smell, but sometimes we want it to take on the taste and smell of the herbs. So like even smelling the chamomile tincture can be helpful, or like a peppermint. We want the aromatics. But yeah, and I only use brandy for a hawthorn, and I only make a small amount of it, and I use that tincture basically for anyone who's suffering really badly from heartache, or maybe has just gone through grief, like a horrific amount of grief. I'll give them the brandy tincture only because the brandy is a heart opener as well. Like, you know, as we know, if we take a shot of brandy, you're going to be like, oh. And so it just helps with the hawthorn. But other than that, always vodka, always the cheapest vodka you can find. Don't be using your Grey Goose or anything like that. No, not necessary. And you don't need to mix it in with water or anything, because the vodka has water in it already, obviously. Otherwise, it would be 100% proof. Because I know some books, American books and stuff, her books will talk about 100% proof vodka and water in it. Yeah, that's because they can access that. We can't. We just have our 37 or 38, whatever it is. So that's perfectly fine. So
what measurements would you use between your dried herbs and vodka? Actually, if you do, I know you're sending them in the correct measurements in your jar, but if I want to make just a smaller version,
I would use dried. I would use 1/5, kind of roughly 1/5, and if it's fresh, I would use 2/3. They're completely different measurements, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
If it's fresh in the jar, I'm going to use it like to about here, and you're not stamping it down, you're leaving it because we want to get it in and around. And we're also probably going to cut the herb if it's fresh, so it can get the constituent, the alcohol.
I'll be doing it with a dried one. So will I do 1/5 dried, is it, or 1/5 vodka?
1/5 dried herb. Yeah, small amount in the bottom. So like this is but like, you know, kind of roughly the amount. So if you're putting it in 100 ml jar, that's 1/5.
30.
Yeah.
90.
Yeah.
Just
eyeball it. Sometimes, you know, just eyeballing it is fine. You're never going to go too wrong, you know, especially if you're making small amounts. I wouldn't even worry too much about I would just look, if it was this size jar, I'd literally be putting it into about there. You know, and then the rest vodka. And you can taste it then as it goes along and see if it's
I've made one and it's very vodka-y.
Yeah, that's fine. You can do what they call a double extraction, so you can put herb back into that. You know, you could, there's no harm in that. I mean, I have some tinctures here behind me now that are on the go 6 or 7 years. Like, I haven't drained them. Like, they don't go off their alcohol.
Yeah.
This will last even when I'm gone and buried. Like,
right. Okay.
So if you found it wasn't strong enough for you, you'd like it strong, just throw some more dried herbs in another jar and pour that vodka mix over it, you know, and you'll get a double strength nearly.
Okay.
Obviously, chemically wise, it's not double strength, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
You can't, but it will definitely be a little bit better. What other questions are here? Dorothy, where do you teach your course? I teach them in Carlow Town in the community gardens that I volunteer in. Lovely spot. So we have organic, and yeah, it's fabulous. So I tend to do only in-person courses. I did it online once and it just didn't, for me, it just doesn't work personally. Like I said, I'm a very tactile person. I'm very touch, feel, smell, taste. And I think to get the understanding of herbs, that has to be part of it. So for me to put my heart into it, I have to teach it in person, which a lot of people give out to me about and say I'm missing a whole opportunity, but I don't care. And that's why I do the boxes, you know, so that can reach out to people. But yeah, teaching it's very personal to me. So I love to see people kind of come around and use them. And I'm a very advocate for the common weeds, which we all overlook and use and don't use. So seeing people realizing that that's what they can do with them is just joyful. When's burdock? I'm not doing burdock, but I'm looking for suggestions to maybe do a few next year, one-off ones. And so I can put that on the list, Sarah. Plantain is next month. Yeah, I had to cut myself off at some stage. Otherwise, you'd be getting boxes for 10 years. So we picked the kind of main ones. But I definitely thought I'd do a few bonusy ones next year for anyone who wanted them. So I'll put that one on the list. Yeah. And so that's all I have for you. Like I said, next month there's plantain, which I absolutely adore and so many people overlook. And so excited to spread the word about plantain. And in the meantime, even if you don't get the boxes and you have any questions, I'm completely open to answering them. So if you get the boxes, great. If you don't worry about it. Still contact me if you have any questions. And yeah, has anyone got anything else before we sign off for the night?
No, just to say thank you.
Yes, thank you very much.
Yeah,
I'm hoping to sign up for the is it a 4 or 5 week course in the new year? But I just don't have I don't know my dates yet, so I just have to wait.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, like I said, there's a couple of spaces left. It's one. I think I'm starting in February to February, March, April, May. I don't even know the months. Isn't that terrible?
Yeah, it was actually Barbara Walsh had recommended it to me.
Oh, Barbara.
Yeah,
I love Barbara, my Babs.
Yeah.
She's my
I'm in
right-hand
Dublin.
woman. I couldn't do it without her.
I know. She's my personal herbalist.
Oh, you're sorted. So
I'm in Dublin, so I was checking the times and everything, and they're kind of coming up. It's the train gets in for 8 minutes past 10. So
Yeah.
if I do make it, I'll be a few minutes late. But I won't know till the new year because I'm hoping to do another course, and the dates just haven't come in. I haven't even booked next year's holiday because I have to wait for this bloody course to be announced.
I'm always like that. Yeah, it's like what my husband says before, like we even talk about holidays. He's like, "Give me your list of courses," because there's always something, and I'm just like, I'm like you. I'm like, I can't tell you just yet till I find out another one. But look, there's no hassle. I'm running it again, like from August to November, like I'm doing now, and they'll be on Saturdays. And I'm hoping to do it. A lot of people wanted me to do it on a Monday, because I know a lot of people work holistic, you know, who are into this kind of are into the holistic side as well. So I will probably try find a Monday. So there'll be loads of options.
Yeah.
So that's something I plan on not doing again and again and again. So you'll have plenty of time to catch me.
Yeah, perfect. Right, look, thanks so much for tonight.
Thank you so much for coming on and spending time with me. And I hope you all have a wonderful, beautiful chamomile weekend. And we'll talk to you again next month. Any questions, send them on.
Thanks.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.